How's it going again, guys? We are going to be doing some basic wire tuck stuff on this EG Honda Civic, and I figured I'd show you guys what I'm doing. So to start, this engine bay obviously is pretty cluttered. It has a bunch of stuff that we do not need and a bunch of wiring that we can hide and kind of make the engine bay look a little bit better, and not show as many wires. The main purpose of doing all this is just to kind of spice up the engine bay and make it look a little bit cooler, I should say. Doesn't really have any purpose other than that. If you want to paint your engine bay and make it look all nice, I highly suggest doing a wire tuck too, because it's really not that difficult. You just kind of got to know what to do and what stuff to run where and all that kind of stuff. So like I said, this is going to be a basic how-to on wire tucking your Honda Civic. To start, I'm going to get rid of this brake booster line, kind of just get it out of the way. A lot of the times on the brake booster, I run it underneath the master, and then I get rid of this bracket here. It's just held on by like a 10mm bolt, and then run it underneath the master cylinder. That way you can't really see the vacuum line as much. Ooh, that thing still had some air in it. Also, I'm going to get rid of a lot of these brackets here because a lot of them aren't even utilized anymore. Like this is a throttle cable bracket, I believe. And this is using a GSR throttle cable bracket, which is on the throttle body. So we do not need this bracket here. There's another bracket like right here we could probably get rid of. Some of this wiring here is also on like brackets and stuff that hold it in a certain spot. But if you get rid of these brackets, you can actually run the wiring like I said, underneath, all this like clutch master cylinder here and run it out, way down in here, so you can't really see any of the wiring. This is just basic stuff. Alright, I just got a lot of the brackets and stuff like that off, like the throttle cable bracket, the brake booster vacuum line bracket, and like the wiring brackets and stuff up here. I got all that sorted out, and I also removed the washer tank for the windshield wiper washer. Got rid of that. A lot of times they don't even work on Hondas because the lines are busted or the wiring is messed up. So I yanked that out. That cleans up a lot of space too. And now I'm going to be moving on to taking the headlight harness out, or at least like unplugging it and pulling it back up through here. And then we will see what we can do with the headlight harness next. So I pulled the fenders off too to make this a little bit easier, so when I tuck the headlight harness, I can kind of show you where I put it and everything. To get the fenders off, you kind of just got to pull. There's a bolt here, 3 bolts on top up here. There's 1 bolt behind the door, and then there's 1 bolt behind the door down here, and then there's 1 under the side skirt down here. And then the fender comes right off. I got the headlights out and the other fender too. I pulled the fuse box off of its like mounting spot right here so we can get back here and clean a lot of this stuff up. I also pulled the fuel filter assembly off of the firewall so we can get the firewall there cleaned up a little bit. Okay, so like the headlight harnesses, when they're attached, this is like pretty much the whole headlight harness here. It's got like a grounding block here that just bolts to the side. And then it's got a bunch of like little clips like this. These style clips that just kind of push right into the frame or like into the engine bay. And then once you remove all those clips and unplug everything, you can pull the harness like off to the side here and then run it. I'll probably end up running it through the fender here and then coming back out and plugging in the back of the headlight here. So that way, none of this stuff up here is, you can't see any of the wires sitting up in the engine bay right here, which makes everything look a lot nicer. I've honestly, on some cars, I've gone to the extent of actually putting the fuse box inside of the car. I don't think I'm going to go that crazy on this one. We're just going to do like a mild tuck on it. We're not going to do nothing too crazy. Just going to clean it up a little bit. Honestly, I would go crazy on it, but the brake lines and stuff are all in really good shape. And I really don't want to mess that up because a lot of times if I do a full wire tuck and a full like engine bay tuck, I'm going to delete all the brake lines and I'm going to run a brake booster delete. So like none of that shit's on the firewall. And then you can just run your single line off to the front brakes, and then I usually run like a hydro e-brake on a drag car. But yeah, like I said, this is a street car, pump gas street car, so we're going to leave all the brake lines how they are and probably just tape them up when we paint. And then, yeah, I'm going to get some oven cleaner now and spray the engine bay with oven cleaner, let it sit for a little while, and then I'll show you what it looks like after I clean it. We just got a fresh coat of paint on it, and it's looking pretty good. Just got a couple paint flakes here and there. Just kidding. This is oven cleaner. I'm letting it sit on the engine bay and soak so it can eat up a lot of the grease. And hopefully when I get it all wiped off and hosed off, it will look like a brand new engine bay, almost. Alright guys, it is the next day now, and I got the car pushed outside. It's actually like really nice out today. It's like 50. So since it's 50 degrees and above freezing, my hose is not frozen. So I have, you know, just a regular hose with a like a garden hose, and I just took the oven cleaner and I hosed it off, and this thing came out great. There's some spots where it's like, you know, peeled the paint up a little bit, but you know, other than that, I mean, it got all the dirt off. So that's what we were looking for. As you can see over here too, this shit is super clean. I feel like I'm just going to take a wet rag and just wipe all the water off, because in some spots there is still like, I don't even know if you can see, but yeah, right here, you might have to just wipe a lot of this off, just because it's dirt that is still getting pulled up. But, you know, 95% of it came right off with the garden hose. That is sweet. I'm going to get the air gun here, blow all the water off, and then grab a paper towel and wipe some of this stuff up. Well, since I'm in the spirit of cleaning, so I figured I would clean the engine block while I am at it, and kind of show you how to do that again. So this is what it looks like currently. There's a bunch of grit all over it. We're going to hit it with that oven cleaner. So the engine is cleaned off pretty well now. Got a lot of that loose grit and dirt off of there. Now, I was just inspecting the cylinder again on this thing, and if you guys didn't tune into that live stream the other night, I'll show you what went on here. Hopefully the camera can pick it up. So pretty much right down the side of the cylinder there is all dug in, because whoever put this motor together previously did not install one of the circlips on the piston wrist pin. So what happened is the wrist pin actually walked out of the piston and ended up digging into the side of the cylinder, which is super unfortunate because it is very deep. It's only like through the middle of the cylinder. It's not all the way up the cylinder. But I don't know. I'm gonna go talk to the machine shop and see what he recommends. He's a straight shooter, and he'll tell me if something's gonna work or not. I'm gonna go talk to him about it, and then we'll pick up after I talk to him. But yeah, other than that, the pistons were broken. Number 1 and 4 both had ringland failure, and the piston was completely chipped off the top. I'll show you again. So as you can see, this is one of the pistons. It's broken. Here's another one that's busted. And here's another one that's broken in multiple spots. I think this is the only good one. Yeah, this one's alright. Alright, so after, I'm going to leave the engine bay dry off, get all the water and stuff off of there, and then I'm going to start masking that so I can get some primer on it. and then we should be able to get the engine bay painted today, hopefully, and then get an answer on the motor to see if it's savable or not. We might actually have to send the pistons we got back and get an overboard piston so we can get that marking out of the cylinder. Alright, now I'm back from the machine shop, and I talked to the guy up there, and he definitely said do not run that engine the way it is. That engine's either going to need to be re-sleeved or just going to have to get a new engine block. So what I'm doing now is I made a post on Facebook looking for an engine block for this guy, and hopefully I got a couple leads on one so we can get a good engine to use, like a good block to use, I should say. The only reason we can't really run that the way it is because even if we bored it out like 40 thousandths to 82 millimeter and got different pistons and everything like that, there's still going to be an area on the cylinder that the ring is not going to seal, and it's going to have excessive blow-by, and that's what we're trying to avoid here. So, like I said, we're going to get a new engine for that thing, a new engine block, and then we should be able to get the motor back together. That is unfortunate, but that is just part of building race cars. You run into snags sometimes. So now I am cleaning up the engine bay a little bit more here. It's looking pretty good. There's not really any dirt left. A lot of this is just like old paint looking like shit. But yeah, we're going to get everything masked up here so we can get some primer on this thing and get the engine bay looking good. Alright guys, I just got some primer on this thing, and when you're doing primer on an engine bay, usually if you go with like a lighter color, you want to use like the gray primer, and in this case we're going to do a dark kind of blue pearl color. I'm actually doing Electron Blue Pearl off of like a Civic Si. It's a factory color, and I did it on another engine bay before this, and the customer seemed to like it, so I'm going to do that on this one. And like I said, we're just starting off here, putting the primer on, make sure everything looks okay with primer before we go ahead and spray the color. Everything looks pretty good so far. The primer is still drying in a few spots, and I like to lay, you know, a coat of black primer over a lot of the brake lines and stuff like that too, just because when these Honda brake lines go out, it's kind of a pain to get to a lot of the lines behind the motor when the motor is installed. So if you lay a coat of paint on them, it doesn't actually hurt anything. It's actually prolonging the life of the line, in my opinion. So that's kind of why I'm doing that. I could just take the brake lines off and bend them down to get the engine bay painted, but like I said, if you're doing like a full brake line tuck or something like that, then I'd worry about the brake lines and stuff like that. But in this case, we're just doing a mild wire tuck and get the engine bay looking a little bit better than it did. So there we go. And I guess I'll pick up when we start spraying some color on this thing. I just laid the first coat of the color on. Like I said, this is Electron Blue Pearl. I'll show you what it looks like here. It's just a Duplicolor paint match spray cans here. They work really good. These actually come out pretty decent when you have the surface cleaned good. But yeah, that's what the color is looking like so far. First coat. No clear coat or anything like that yet. A lot of times on this kind of color, the clear coat really brings the color out, and we will be clearing this after we get a couple coats of paint on it. But yeah, as you can see, this is just one coat so far. It's looking pretty good. No runs, no blotches. Just looks good. I'm pretty happy so far. Now we will get this thing coated up in a couple more coats of paint, and then I'll have to get some clear, and then we can rip all the masking off and show you the final product. Alright, so we got a couple coats of paint on this thing now. This is how it's looking so far. Not too bad, not too bad. So now we're going to throw some clear coat on it and see how it looks after the clear coat. Just got some clear coat on this thing, and it's turning out pretty damn good. Honestly, I don't even think there's a single paint run anywhere on this. Hopefully the lighting does this justice. but in person it looks freaking awesome. Look at that. Fancy. See, I don't hack everything together. Sometimes I do shit nice, you know. Like I said, I know how to do pretty much a lot of this stuff on Hondas, but you know, on my own shit, I skimp sometimes because either to save money or to save time or whatever. But if it's a customer car and you're paying me to do something for you, I'm obviously going to try to make it to look as best as I possibly can. So yeah, I think that's where I'm going to wrap this video up, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully this thing's going to be good to go. I need to find an engine block for it still. I need to find a GSR block, preferably bare with just caps, considering I have a good crank, I have a good oil cooler, all that kind of stuff. I literally just need a block and caps. So once we get an engine block for it, I will be putting the bottom end back together and getting the motor back together so we can stuff it back into this car. In the meantime, the wire tuck I did not finish quite yet, just because I'm waiting on the paint to fully dry and whatnot. But pretty much for the headlight harnesses here, I'm just going to run the headlight harnesses through, I believe like through here. I'll probably just have to make a hole in the side of the engine bay here. This is the easiest way to do it, at least. Otherwise you got to send it through the car and extend the wiring and shit, which I don't want to do. But I'm just going to drill a hole through here and then run the wiring through this little hole, and then it'll come out right here, and then it'll plug into the headlights right there. Same thing on this side. Just kind of get a hole, send it through this hole right here, run the wiring down, and then the headlights will plug in there. As for the rest of it, I mean, that's really the most tucked you can get without cutting anything or whatever. And then the engine harness, I usually just lay it like way down in here, and then the engine harness can plug in way down here instead of having all the wiring, you know, up here and whatnot. So hopefully that'll be all good. I'll probably pick up on that tomorrow when I do another video. Hopefully we'll have the motor, like I said, and then I'll finish the wire tuck and stuff like that. So stay tuned, and yeah, thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next video, guys. Be sure to hit that like button if you enjoy this content, and subscribe if you are new.